All right, let's get you downstairs, my friend. Good to see you, everyone. My name is Robbie Howell. Last month, I made a very angy video when I was very sick, whinging about how much I hated Victors and Vanquished. I still stand by pretty much everything I said in that video. However, I did get to thinking. So I've been thinking for quite some time, actually, about what I would personally do to try to monetize AoE2 in a way that wasn't scummy and predatory, and could help the game keep going for another 2 decades. I'd like today to share with you a number of ideas I've had on DLC suggestions for Age of Empires 2, besides the normal Civilization expansion packs, which of course I do love, but this video is not about those. But before we get into that, this video is sponsored by me. This is my game, Enclave. It is a tabletop role-playing game. My YouTube channel and Discord server for it are linked down below. If you want to see the sort of games that I actually make, that give me any sort of credibility to talk about game design in general, then I would highly recommend you check it out if you like tabletop role-playing games. I've been developing it for quite some time. I'm very proud of it. And later this month, we have an event that is a great entry point into the game if you are a newcomer to it. So I'd love to see you there on the Enclave server, as well as on my Age of Empires 2 Discord server, link also down in the description below. Anyways, so why this topic came to mind. Like I said, Victors and Vanquished was hot ass, but before that, the thing that brought it to mind was a video from Hera, which I will also try to remember to link below. He put it out ages ago. At the time, I thought, ooh, I'll make like a response video, you know, like 2012 YouTube, right? He was talking about what he would do to make AoE2 live forever. And while I seriously disagree with him on a bunch of different points, obviously he comes at it from the perspective of a pro, and I do not, there were some things that I thought he had really good points on, but more than that, it got me thinking about what exactly I would do instead. We need to monetize Age of Empires 2 better, in a way that doesn't piss people off. Of course, even more than this video, though, what brought it into sharp perspective was the V&V debacle. I will say, I called it in my predictions video for V&V. Go take a look at that up there if you have any interest. I guessed what might be involved in this mystical single-player campaign DLC we would get. I was wrong about everything, except I at one point said it had better not cost $10. Well, it was more than that. So I told you so. Or not really. I didn't really tell anyone anything so. But the current reviews on Steam for V&V are dog water. They are terrible. And for good reason. I think it is a borderline scam. And because of this, I must add as a caveat to everything I will discuss in this video that I think all of these are great ideas if they are reasonably priced. All of these ideas that I'm about to suggest, even if they got added to the game, I would be super displeased with if they were price gouged. That was my huge problem with V&V. I mean, I think that the DLC, even at $5, would have been a serious ripoff. But for the sake of conversation, 13 is ridiculous. And because of that, all of these ideas that I have, none of them is so good that a price tag too unreasonable could not be attached to it. Additionally, on the topic of videos that I've fucking forgot about making, a video I'm not going to forget to make is a custom campaign recommendation video. So make sure you comment below with all of your favorite custom campaigns, including the person who made it, as well as the name someone would use to find it on the mod workshop. I want to showcase as many as I can, and so please share your thoughts if you haven't done so already on previous videos. And with that, let's move into what I think are my top DLC ideas. Of course, I want to hear you in the comments with your own ideas, as well as any critiques you have of mine. So, let's begin with skins. What do I mean by skins? I mean both the regional architecture sets that we have now, as well as those dorky little reskins that we have for things like Scout Cavalry to AoE1, Scout Cavalry and Monks and blah blah blah. That sort of thing. The current optional skin offerings suck. Maybe some of you guys like them. I think they're unbelievably lame. I don't want to have some like cheap novelty shite, right? I want to have something that is actually historical, actually adds more texture to the game, and also can add a bunch more assets for modders to use. These silly little singletons that we get from AoE1 and that sort of thing were like, oh, it's a Teutonic Knight with a party head on. I don't know. Sure, as like free stuff, fine. But I don't find these compelling at all. If they charge for them, I would be livid. But the fact that they're free, it's fine. They don't offend me. But if in terms of actually making money off of skins, there is I think, serious potential here beyond these little novelty things. The reason I bring up the optional ones is I don't want people to consider those the limitation of what people can actually get away with in terms of skins in Age of Empires. A full set of historical-ish skins would be a much bigger deal and much more worthy of actual money being shelled out. So, first thing I want to propose is regional unit skins. I know I am not the first person to talk about this, though I have mentioned it at many times in the past as being something I really, really want to see. Something that matches the current architecture sets and just reskins all of the units in the game to be congruent with the architecture sets they belong to. You can either release them one at a time, like, oh, this is the Middle Eastern regional unit skin set. Buy it for, I don't know, $5. Don't you dare make it more. But $5 sounds rather reasonable to me. I mean, 3 would be better, but 5 I could live with. Or maybe bundle them all together. Comprehensive regional unit skin bundle, 25 buckaroonies. Some shit like that. I think it's great. I think it's very feasible, and I think it could hypothetically be an enormous boon for people who want to have some beautiful eye candy while they play, and again, for modders. I will say, though, we can go further. Quite a while ago, someone sent me this screenshot for a mod someone made for the original game, or maybe it was HD, where every single civilization, or a big number of them, were given unique architecture sets. Completely unique. And so, for a DLC, why not give a single civilization completely unique looks for all architecture and units? Woo! Now that would be value. And is something that, even if you want to say, yeah, each individual civilization you need to pay for. Well, again, 5, maybe even a little more than 5 because it's buildings and units. 5, 6, $7, something like that per civilization. People are like, oh, wow, that's really expensive. That's a lot of work that goes into that shit. Maybe you can bundle them all together for like a high but not ridiculous amount. Either way, I think if you don't gouge people with like some ridiculousness, like $10 per civilization or something, this idea could be amazing. I think a lot of people would love to see it, and again, modders would eat it up. Single players, casual players would eat it up. And I must remind people that the majority of those playing Age of Empires 2 are casuals, not pros. And even for the pro scene, yes, the pros could have an option to turn all this custom shit off, but for the casters, they could have it on so that their audience can enjoy some beautiful eye candy. Or if the audience are like, no, I want to try hard and only see original skins, sure, turn it off. Easy peasy, squeeze the lemon. Everyone benefits. Maybe you could even throw in some music options too. Ooh, that would be cool. Because like, I do like the Civ jingles, but I'd really like to have some more elaborate, in-depth music, or maybe some more different music tracks per civilization to complement the baseline ones that we have. Like I was saying, skins are a win-win for everyone. How many of us started playing Age of Empires because of how it looked? I know that for me, if Age of Empires looked more like, I don't know, Warcraft 1, for example, I don't think I would have enjoyed it nearly as much. I think that a big part of what makes the game stick around for so long is how it looks, and we should lean into that further. And like I said, the modders will love it. Just make sure that if you make a mod that has paid skins in the mod, it's viewable to people who don't have the mod yet, because that would be so obnoxious if you didn't do that. And then, again, turn off all the skins for the competitive people. Yeah, so it's a win-win for everyone. And that's why skins are the top of my list. But I do think there is more potential DLC goodness that is out there than just that. Single-player DLCs may have had their reputation somewhat tarnished by V&V, so much so that I think it hardly counts as a single-player DLC, given that it was recycling existing content for the most part. However, I really hope that its failure does not ruin this idea, because I think that single-player DLCs have huge potential. For one, actually new, high-quality campaigns that fit with the existing structure of campaigns that are currently in the game, right? We love Philadelphia. He's amazing. He's super talented, but he definitely has, like, a type, you know what I mean? And so because of that, some new campaigns that maybe not just high quality, because his campaigns are high quality, but actually fit what you normally expect out of an Age of Empires campaign. Not only can this let us fill in the representation holes among existing civilizations, as I mentioned before, but we can also use this as an opportunity to start to push the boundaries on what single-player content can be in Age of Empires. New ways that single-player campaigns can be played. Some examples. Branching paths. What about a campaign that is only 4 scenarios long, but every time you finish a scenario, it could branch to one of 2 others? So that way, a lot of replay value, and maybe depending on what route you take, the next scenario plays a little bit differently. So like the branching paths can intertwine, and it has a lot of replay value because maybe if you get to one scenario, one route, you get there with certain benefits, go another route, you get other benefits. I think that could be sick. Another example, co-op campaigns I think are hugely viable. The current co-op stuff that we have in the game is doo-doo. It's so boring and lame and easy. I want hard co-op campaigns. I think that like crowbarring in co-op campaigns into beloved existing single-player scenarios is not the way to do it. Make new stuff that is designed to be played co-op. That could be absolutely sick. Like, frankly, Algirdish and Kestutis was kind of in this direction, but they didn't commit to it. Like, something like that, but built for two-player from the beginning. And as another completely different idea, what about long campaigns? Like, not 6-7 scenarios. What about, like, 12-scenario epics for characters who deserve 12-scenario epics? Maybe even we could expand existing campaigns, put in, like, interstitial maps in between ones that are already there, or, like, go into depth on a character we only caught a glimpse of in another campaign, like Subotai, for example. That could be sick. But my personal favorite is a campaign, probably a very long one, where between every scenario you had some sort of civilizational upgrade or modular choice that you could make. If you ever played the original StarCraft 2 campaigns, like the Wings of Liberty and the Heart of the Swarm one, I haven't played the Legacy of the Void one because I hated that game, but like the first two were pretty awesome. After every scenario, you would have like an ability to get like a new power or unlock, and a lot of them weren't available in normal play. So what if we did that in Age of Empires 2? I think that would be sick. What if you could have the ability to make, I don't know, flamethrowers or something, unlock that between scenarios? I think that would open the door to not only the modders getting a lot of fun stuff to play with, but also to us getting to enjoy the game in a whole different way, and also have a lot of replay value. That is absolutely something I would be willing to pay money for. I don't know, maybe it's just me though. Now, the last of the topics I want to talk to you guys about in this first section of the video are modding tools. I will say this many times this video, I'm sure, but it is my strong conviction, and something I've shared multiple times in the past, that RTS and 4X games live and die by their map editors. Look at Warcraft 3. Base game Warcraft 3, it's fine, it's fun, right? The campaign's awesome. But the mods are what gave it longevity. I'm sure you guys can think of examples too, of where a map editor gives a strategy game eternal life. And because of that, we gotta be supporting the map editor in Age of Empires 2. And if we want to monetize it fairly, I think that is a fine idea. So first of all, more accessible scenario editor options. Like, I want to see a full editor's suite without so much barrier to entry. Yes, you can do a lot with the game right now, but it takes quite a lot of knowledge of the game's guts, and also ideally some like computer programming skill as well. So let's make that more accessible, shall we? It's already doable, and maybe we can expand what's doable even with that in the process. Along those lines, a full, proper civilization builder, please. Adding rather than replacing civilizations, which I think I saw a note in my Discord was something that people are speculating might be coming soon, which would be sick. Like, obviously, Krakenmeister's work is amazing. It's a great proof of concept. I think we can take that and we can roll even further with it. Give us the ability to make proper civilizations to add to whatever scenarios we want, and let people import into their own single-player games without replacing existing civilizations. Is this hard to do? Is it impossible? I don't frickin' know, but if we have to pay for it, I don't frickin' care. I think that would be one of the ways we make this game last forever. Along the same lines as the Civ Builder, an explicit unit and building builder. Again, this is something that does technically exist if you know what you're doing, but I want something that's easier to use and bypasses existing limitations. A sprite editor would be pretty awesome as well. Now, I know that sprite editing is a lot harder to do in DE than it was in HD and earlier, but it's not impossible. Yes, we don't want to make current sprites by hand, but what if we have the option to limit to just original 8-direction turning like we had before DE? What if we could turn off building collapse animations so that we could bypass that as an issue? Like, we never had a problem with buildings vanishing into rubble before DE came out, so just let us turn it off if we want to make our own building assets. Ideally, if they put this in, I would be so thrilled. What if we could import 3D models in and the game could automatically spriterize them? Like, from what I understand, that's how Age of Empires 2 DE sprites already work, right? Like, it's a 3D model that they then make into a sprite. I think, right? I could be wrong about that. But if that's the case, that means it's definitely possible. So what if we could do that ourselves? Bring in a model from, like, again, Warcraft 3, make it into an Age of Empires 2 sprite, bam, you have a completely new unit. That would be amazing. But even if we don't get exactly that, more access to in-game assets and an interface to build them with would be, in my opinion, absolutely worth money. Now, along the same lines with modding tools, I should note, I've been talking about Warcraft 3 a lot because it's a game I know very well, but Warcraft 3 had all of this for free. It didn't have to be paid for. And yes, in a perfect world, we wouldn't need to pay for this. In a perfect world, AoE2 would already have an incredibly good editor at base. And it has a very decent editor, but we can make it better, guys. I understand that dev time would need to go in to making these modding tools more accessible, more available, and more user-friendly. And because of that, I think that having to pay for them is reasonable in the state that we find ourselves in. Warcraft 3 I am using as an example to prove how doable this is, and how it's not unreasonable for us as AoE2 players to ask for it. And I will also say the Warcraft 3 editor, while it was incredibly powerful and fun, was so fussy to use. Like, you needed to know a lot to really make it do what you wanted it to. But people made it work, and it's still popular 20 plus years later. So yes, AoE2 can absolutely do better. We can use this as a motivation for our own success. And if nothing else, improving modding tools lets us democratize the game's content. We know that AoE2 has finite dev resources. They can only be putting so much money to so many places to keeping the game alive. So what if they put all those resources towards enabling us to keep the game alive instead? That way they can just worry about, game balance and that sort of shit. Frankly, if we got all this stuff and we never got another official Civ release, but we had the ability to make our own civilizations and do way more with the in-game map editor, I wouldn't care. That would be awesome. We would get everything we wanted. We would have infinity at our fingertips rather than being drip-fed. Yes, there are problems with this system, but I still think it has serious potential and is, in my eyes, the single thing that will make this game live another 20 years. Much more than a pro scene, much more than consistent expansions, and much more than balance patches. So if you take nothing else from this video, remember my words. Strategy games live and die by their map editors. Case in point, again, Warcraft 3. The mods are way better than vanilla. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. Now, let's move on from all of what I thought my top ideas were to what I think are my more middling ideas. I like these a lot, but they are definitely less feasible, or easily feasible, than the ones I just listed. And remember to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content thus far. Beginning with a mod store. Now, this is in a similar direction to the editing tools I was just talking about, but it's riskier. I think we should let modders monetize their work. And this would let the devs take a reasonable cut. I'm not talking a 50% cut. And I know that letting modders monetize is risky. Obviously, Steam is full of shovelware garbage, right? And we don't want Age of Empires to become that. So maybe you can limit it to only people with proven track records, who have put out a couple of, nice, popular mods already. Or maybe they can even pick and choose based on who they know to be doing well. Just regardless, make sure there's a robust refund policy, and I don't think people are going to give you a hard time, even if once in a while something crappy gets on there. Letting people support the work they love and giving the modders the ability to up their production quality is only going to be a good thing for the game's lifespan going forward, and it will give the devs a little drip feed of change in the process. That's nice. That's good. That's kind of a win-win for everyone involved. Having the option out there rather than forcing people to reroute to Patreon or something like that, I think is just good business. Just remember, Patreon only takes a 10% cut, so if you want to be competitive, maybe just stick with that. Just saying. What I'm talking about with this is kind of driving towards making Age of Empires 2 into a platform. That's going to be the second of my major theses from this video. That, alongside the live and die by the editor thing, which of course this ties into. Age of Empires 2 is, of course, a great game by itself, right? But a great game cannot necessarily live forever by itself. Having Age of Empires be at the heart of an expanded content platform that people come to for all sorts of things beyond just the base game or beyond just the campaigns is, I think, a really positive way of branching out and making it into a more viable long-term business venture. The Age of Empires 2 engine is, in my experience, the best RTS engine of all time, bar none. But although the base game is great, and there's no doubt about that, There are so many other draws to Age of Empires 2. I know that when I first rediscovered the game when I was in high school, one of the first things that I found was that Emmanuel campaign. I don't remember, I think it was Lord Bassi, might be wrong on that, but it was amazing. And I remember looking at it and saying, holy hell, I didn't know this game could do this. I didn't know it could be more than just, oh, Saladin, why are you going with that great army? That's special, right? And that's something Age of Empires 2 has that I don't think other strategy games have. I don't know how to describe it, man. We have something here. And making the game into a platform is one of the ways we can capitalize on that in a way that isn't predatory and allows everyone to win. So make sure you lean into this without scalping, as I will reiterate 1,001 times. And this idea, I think, will do really well. Now, another middling idea, nested games. We actually already have precedent for this. RTR was a nested game. They nested Age of Empires 1 within Age of Empires 2. They effectively put Age of Empires 1 into the AoE2 engine and let you access it through the AoE2 menu. I don't think that's the only game that we can nest within AoE2. Build and sell other games within the AoE2 engine and framework, accessed through AoE2, just like RTR. But what if it's not just limited to AoE1? What if we did this with other games, existing and potential? Because remember, people were hyped for RTR. People thought that was a sick idea that they were really excited for, and then it was a shitty, lazy port that made us pay for the same crappy game a third time in a row without improving the majority of its serious problems. Yes, improved a few, not enough in my opinion. That doesn't mean this idea doesn't have legs. Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds, that's an obvious example. People talk about them in my Discord all the time, in my comment section all the time. I haven't touched it since I was like 7. Someday I know I'm going to have to. But what if that was just ported straight into AoE2 and sold just like RTR? Unlike RTR, I think that if you didn't even change this one a tick, people would still love it, because we don't have like a proper remaster for that game yet, I believe. What if like we even considered making pseudo ports of Age of Mythology and Age of Empires 3, using like that same material but porting it into the AoE2 engine? So what I'm saying is, as long as it's not lazy and people try to like iterate and improve upon or differentiate the offerings that they're giving within this nested game option, I think it has serious frickin' potential. And it could easily go beyond existing entries into the Age universe or whatever. Remember that Lord of the Rings mod way the hell back in the day before DE? What if we actually had that as official? Yes, I know it's expensive. Yes, licensing and all that shit. That's just an example, right? What if we brought other IPs into Age of Empires and sold nested games that are effectively Age of Empires 2, big reskinned, big restructured, and having some other like unique gimmicks and stuff? That would be sick. People would be frothing at the bit for that. The point being is that if we make Age of Empires 2 into a platform, it will be a perfect foundation for these other IPs to branch off into the RTS genre. If we want the RTS genre to have a resurgence, making it super easy for new IPs to break into rather than having to design their own framework from ground up would be huge. At least, I think so. And I should note, this sort of like use your game as a platform for other IPs does have precedent. Magic the Gathering does it. I frickin' loathe the Magic the Gathering extended universe crapola because I love Magic the Gathering's intrinsic fantasy world building and think that this is selling out and ruining it. But I cannot deny that it sold incredibly well. At least the Lord of the Rings one did. And Age of Empires 2 is different because it's history. It's not like existing fantasy world building that I have personal attachment to. Now, the last of the middling options I want to talk about is new modes. I'm going to elaborate on this a little more. I'm not just talking like Empire Wars or like 256 times tech mode, the latter of which is super fun and the former of which I find to be super boring. Those are fine, but they're definitely not worth money as DLCs. What about a frickin' hero mode? What if we actually let civilizations have like multiple heroes which can level up? Again, I'm thinking Warcraft 3, but like there's tons of RTS games that do stuff like this, with maybe some more new details, more innate differences to the way the game is played in like a major tangible way that completely change the focal point. Heroes being the focal point is completely different, with potentially tons of new content, totally worthy of being a separate purchase. And again, the modders would devour this. They've been wanting to have like level up mechanics in the game forever. Another idea of a new mode that I personally had, versus campaigns. What if this is like an asymmetrical map that you play competitively, but it's a campaign. So like each person is progressing through the campaign at their own pace and playing like one side of the campaign versus another, something like that. Am I sold on this idea? No. Do I think it could have legs? Abso-freaking-lutely. Maybe like a long-form best-of-7 thing with branching paths based on who wins what. Freaking cool as hell. And would kind of like marry the single-player and multiplayer communities a little bit, maybe get some overlap between them. We want to encourage them to cross-pollinate. So this is an idea of how that could maybe happen. But more on that than new modes. Not all of these need to be competitive. Not even close. Remember, the competitive community is a minority within the overall Age of Empires player base, and also a minority within the overall amount of money spent by Age of Empires players. And they already get what they want for the most part. They got tournament support, they got patches, they got all that shit, right? Casual players are a much bigger demographic, so let's find stuff that they want and gives them value and makes them excited to open up the game and excited to spend money on it. Like ARAM in League of Legends. I'm not saying exactly that, right? That's a reductive way of putting it, and that mode is obviously free, but something that really changes the way the game is played and makes people happy and willing to spend money rather than making them feel like they've been ripped off. Now, I want to round out this video by talking about my ultimate long shot. If I had my way, this is the thing I would do after all of the above to, in my opinion, cement Age of Empires 2's longevity. History mode. This is an alternate game mode idea similar to what I just discussed, but it takes it many steps further. So, this would be an alternate game mode with all the existing civilizations and tons of new mechanics and options. It could be competitive, but would be primarily meant for casual, specifically for the people who love to get into depth with empire building, or PvE and stuff like that. A number of people are like, oh yeah, I love booting up a game, easiest AI, just making a pretty base. This mode is for you guys, and there's a lot of you out there. What history mode would have is it would have an expanded tech tree. Loads more regionals, but also new core units, buildings, technologies, and less emphasis on the current streamlined arcade-style form of play. Way more emphasis on improved historical authenticity, still gamified, and also way more options, letting people add more color and pop and variety to their day-to-day gaming in Age of Empires 2, and making every single time they play feel completely different from the last if they wanted to. This is in addition to new, far more funky and fiddly and interesting mechanics that the player wouldn't have to painstakingly research. They just dive into the game and see what happens. And for a lot of people, that's really fun. When I was younger, that was one of the most exciting things about Age of Empires, not knowing what exactly would happen because I hadn't yet fully figured out the game. This could also be used for campaigns, to give super immersive, involved, in-depth gameplay to certain scenarios or certain full campaigns. I think that having it as an option would enable the modders to just have an absolute field day and make some incredible stuff for us. So this history mode would be kind of a harmonization between my new modes idea and the new games idea. It's practically a new game using the same overarching engine, and is again an example of how Age of Empires 2 can be used as a platform rather than hyper-fixating on the same gameplay loop hamster wheel that we have all been running on since 1999. So we take the best of 4X, RTS, blend it together into this history mode, add historical authenticity, add color, add variety and mechanics, add mystery without focusing as much on competitive balance, and I really believe it'd make money. But that's just what I think. Now I want to hear what you guys think. How do you like my ideas? I know some of them are a little off the walls, but I want to hear what you would suggest. And if you didn't like any of my ideas, why didn't you? Do you see any very specific problems with them that you think prevent them from actually being realized, or maybe being realized in the way that I hope they would? Make sure that you join the Discord, linked down below. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for taking the time to watch. If you like what I'm saying here, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. I got some great builds and other videos coming up for you guys over the next couple months. But until then, my name is Robbie Howell. And ciao for now.